Okay, so the lever is a simple machine that is discussed in the book, but let me just talk about why you would want to lift something with a lever. Let's imagine I've got a box here. It's on a floor, and I want to lift it up onto, I don't know, this table over here. I'm gonna put a table right there. But let's think about this. This box is like really heavy, and I physically cannot lift it this distance. That's how high I need to lift that to get it onto the table. So what's my option? Well, I could get a little pivot point, a little fulcrum, and get a big old board and shove it under my box. That becomes a lever now. And so what I can do is I can pull down on my lever. But notice that in this case, I would have to pull, I'd have to apply a force downward on the end of my lever in order to apply a force upward on my box. And notice the big difference is that I would have to apply my force. I have to pull my lever all the way to the ground, a much greater distance than I wind up lifting the box to get it up onto the table. But again, it makes the impossible possible. I couldn't lift that box just with my hands, lifting straight up. So I'm willing to make that sacrifice of applying a force over a greater distance, because then I can use a smaller force. Now, pulleys are an interesting machine also described in your book because they can do one of two things. They can either simply redirect your force without multiplying it, or they can multiply your force. An example of just redirecting would be, let's say, those blinds, those mini blinds that cover your windows. You really don't have any multiplication of force there. But the important thing is that it allows you to redirect your force. When you want to open your blinds, you don't want to have to climb up on your counter and lift your blinds every time you want to open them. It's much easier to pull down and have a mechanism that will lift them up. So you're actually able to lift up the blind by pulling down on the string. So essentially what you got is just a redirection of force. By pulling down, you lift up, and that's because the string goes over the wheel of the pulley and redirects the force. However, sometimes you're lifting something that's impossible, such as the man pictured here. He's trying to lift an impossibly heavy weight, 350 newtons. He's an old man. He can't lift very much. So what does he do? He uses what's called a block and tackle system. This is not a simple pulley. This is actually a system of several pulleys. And he's able to make the impossible possible. He couldn't lift this just with his bare hands by using the block and tackle. He can lift it. What's the sacrifice that he makes? He has to pull more rope. This object may only be lifted a very short distance. I think in the PowerPoint it may have him. It may only go up 1 meter to lift a 350 Newton weight. So essentially, he's doing 350 on the outside, on the output end of things. He's exerting a 350 Newton force on the block by virtue of the block and tackle system, lifting at 1 meter. So he winds up on the output end getting 350 Newton meters of work done. Of course, he doesn't have to apply 350 newtons. If he could apply 350 newtons with his own body, he would have just lifted it up without all this mess. But he can't. So therefore, he's able to apply only a matter of, I think it's 50 newtons. That's all he has to exert on that rope. The trade-off is he has to pull more rope. He has to apply that force over a distance of 7 meters. He has to pull 7 meters of rope in order to make that chunk of metal rise 1 meter into the sky. So he still winds up doing 350 Newton meters of work. You don't get something for nothing in this world, my friends. You still put the same amount of work in as you get out. But the important thing is that now he's able to lift something that he otherwise wouldn't be able to.